You are never alone. You are never alone. Just reach into your heart and Allah is always there. You are never alone. You are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace, you are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Family Issues. In the upcoming episode, we will be discussing, inshallah, teenage issues. Especially for those teenagers raised in non-Muslim communities. What is the best way to raise these teenagers and to take care of these teenagers so as to make for pious men and women, inshallah. Teenagers, of course, think differently than us. They tend to be impulsive and not abiding by the traditional, so that's an obstacle. Most, of course, of Muslim teenagers get exposed to different misconceptions about Islam, especially in the West, in specific. What about the idea of prevent is better than cure? Or is it better to wait till they ask questions themselves about anything in life or in religion? Teenagers are different, of course, than children. They find it difficult to abide by the rules and obeying the parents. So the children, by the way, are also nowadays children, we don't know why, but they also don't obey very much the orders of the parents. May Allah make all your children and ours obedient and of course listening to their parents' commands. And the West is full of temptation, so how can we protect our teenagers from these temptations? All of this will be discussed with a very distinguished guest whom we will be introducing you to after we take our first break here in our program. Don't forget, dear brothers and sisters, that you can call us live on the phone numbers appearing on the screen, and you can also email us at familyissues@huda.tv. If you have any comment or any suggestion for questions, please do call us. We'll be waiting along with our distinguished guests for your questions here. Time now to take the short break and come back and start our discussion right away about teenagers, especially in non-Muslim communities. Do stay with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Never alone. You are never alone.
Europe's forgotten heritage.
This is a sad reminder of the past history of the Muslims in the city. Nowadays, there are no Muslims anymore. These are the mosques that have remained. And it is really sad.
Wait a second, this is Morocco. No, this is Tunisia, Algeria, North Africa, Egypt. No, this is all Europe, and this is all part of Spain. Islam spread first in Africa, and then from Africa it came over to Europe, and then it did developing work in Europe. Now, we look the other way around nowadays. The compass was invented by the Muslims. Many important inventions came from the time of the Muslims on the Iberian Peninsula. Instead of people becoming less in battles, as we normally know, as we know in battles obviously people die, but no, what was happening? The Spaniards recognized and realized the superiority of the Muslims and the treatment that the Muslims gave to the Christians and the Jews in Spain at that time, that they happily accepted Islam, many of them.
An Ottoman fountain, as we've seen it before in other places in Greece. Now, it has some Arabic on top, as well as it has some Arabic down, where the tap used to be, or where the water was coming out.
Pack your bags, grab your passports, and join Dr. Steph Keris as he takes us through Europe and rediscovers Europe's forgotten heritage, only on Huda TV. Tech Talk.
going to look how to create a website and which Islamic websites to actually visit. What inspired you to create your own website?
One of the challenges that we face every day, the site or the application should be accessible worldwide. I remember when I was younger, one of my friends asked me to convince his father to get him a desktop, even the laptop. If you compared both of them in terms of cost, laptop roughly cost twice the money if you compare it with the desktop.
Hackers, the word hackers, most of the youth people are very interesting about that word. They say, hey, I'd like to be a hacker, because there is a type of hacker doing great job. We call them white hat hacker.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We have now with us in the studio Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad, renowned Muslim scholar, director of the Muslim Research and Development Foundation, Islam21c.com, and member of the Islamic Sharia Council. Sheikh Haytham, thank you for being here. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Jazakallah khair.
Sheikh Haytham, where do you want to start when we talk about raising teenagers, our teenagers, in non-Muslim societies?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. I think normally when we discuss teenagers, we need to understand what makes them different from children. And I'm sure that most of the brothers and sisters have read something about it, and I advise them to continue reading about it. But just to have an academic, fruitful discussion, maybe it is good to lay the foundation, which is the main difference between the children and teenagers. Now, children, generally speaking, they do not see something in the world except their parents. And children, as they say, they see their parents as the heroes. Whether the girl or the boy, they see their father or their mother as the heroes. But teenagers, they want to explore the world now. This is a very fundamental difference. The second important fundamental difference is children, they have their own psychology. They have their own nature. Teenagers, they want now to gain their own identity. Children are not looking for their own identity. Teenagers, they want to prove or to secure an identity. Just before that, they want to search for an identity, because now they are not anymore belonging to their parents. They want themselves to be identified, independent or so. To identify them by their own identity. This is the second thing. The third thing is, with children, generally speaking, you can discipline them easily because they are under your control. But teenagers, especially in the West, you cannot discipline them. You cannot apply kind of punishments, even non-physical punishments. For example, children, you say, well, if you don't do this, then you will not have your time, your fun time. But with teenagers, this is a bit difficult. You are not dealing with a child. The teenager, he might go outside and might look for the fun by himself. So these are the main differences. Now, once we understand those main differences, we have to deal with teenagers based on these differences. Or, I mean, we need to put these differences in mind. However, Brother Muhammad, I would like to emphasize one important point when we discuss the issue of teenagers, and which is the fact that many people neglect their children, and all of a sudden when they become teenagers and they start behaving un-Islamically, all of a sudden they want to teach them about Islam, and they want to discipline them. They want them to carry the Islamic values, the Islamic ethos, and so on and so forth. You know, in Arabic we have وَيَنْشَأُ نَاشِئُ الْفِتْيَانِ فِينَا عَلَى مَا كَانَ قَدْ عَوَّدَهُ أَبُوهُ. Okay? If you teach your children to behave in a certain way, or you let them to behave in a certain way, you cannot come when they become 13, 14, and all of a sudden it changes them. So last time, if you remember, we started to speak about Salah. And we said that it is very important to teach our children, not even to teach them. If you remember, we said they are programmed to program our children to pray, even Fajr prayer.
They just copy their heroes.
Exactly. They are programmed. They don't know how they were programmed. It is there. This is their body. This is their chemistry. And if they are not programmed like this, they are programmed the other way around, then when they become 13 or 12, 13, 14, you suddenly want to educate them. You are going against what they have been programmed on. Please, brothers and sisters, do not leave your children until they become teenagers and then you want to teach them or you want to discipline them. It is very, very difficult, or maybe I want to say that it will not work. And that's why people always complain about teenagers. I have teenagers, I think you have teenagers, all of us.
Not quite, just a few years.
Okay, but all of us have teenagers and we complain about them.
Yes.
They have their own problems, that is true. But there is a difference between some problems and other problems. If you do not teach your daughters, you do not program, let me use the correct word, if you do not program your daughter to wear conservative clothes and hijab, it is almost impossible that when she comes at the age of 12 or so, that all of a sudden, you have to wear conservative clothes, long clothes, cover your head, etc. She will not accept it.
And then you could have a very bad reaction.
Exactly. And what will happen normally in the West, people neglect their children and they think that, we can chain them, leave them, they are young, etc. This is what we always hear. And then all of a sudden their children pick bad habits, or they start even questioning Islam or questioning certain things in Islam. And then now the parents wake up. When they wake up, they were shocked of what their children are doing. As a result, they might take some measures that might be a little bit aggressive or violent, and hence a reaction from the teenagers. Then it is a problem. And we have seen teenagers, I have seen teenagers who call the police for their parents.
Amazing.
And we have seen teenagers. This is a frequent problem in the West, subhanAllah. It's a big problem in the West. Many of them, they run away. They run away when they are 14, 15.
So sad.
They run away from boys and girls. Boys and girls, they run away. So how to avoid this? Don't wait until they become teenagers. So this is the first important point. Of course, there are some other elements that we can discuss through this episode, but I want to highlight the key differences and this important principle in bringing up your children.
Very important introduction indeed, Sheikh Haytham. Of course, among the major differences, again, between teenagers and children, is that teenagers think differently. Definitely they think differently than children and than us. So they tend to, not abide by the traditional. I mean, is that a fair statement? The tendency to
we
be
have
against
to be careful.
any traditional stuff?
Yes, Muhammad, we have to be careful, ya akhi. Children, teenagers, they might be rebellious against their parents, but not against what they were programmed to do. Because what they have been, or what they were programmed on, it becomes part of their identity without knowing that. For example, just a very simple example. If the teenager from a very young age, if a person from a very young age knew that the private part is awrah, and it should not be exposed, And let us be even more honest and say that no one should touch your private part. This is something sacred. Then it will be built up with him, especially it matches his fitrah. So when he becomes 12, 13, even if he goes astray or he becomes against some of the guidelines or instructions given to him by his parents, he will not reach to a point quickly where he just walks naked in the street or she walks naked in the street. This is, I gave this extreme example just to show that whatever you program your child on, it becomes part of his nature, part of his identity. So I don't think that the child or the teenager, when he becomes repulsive against you, that he will become repulsive against what he was programmed on. Why we need to have a clear understanding about this? Because my reaction to the stubbornness of my child might be too extreme. And then I might think that he is going against his own culture, his own identity, his own religion, etc. So I might deal with him while in mind I think that he wants to strip himself from his culture. So my reaction will force him to strip himself of his culture or from his culture.
The extreme reaction.
So I am the one who is pushing him to hate culture, to hate his legacy.
So there we should be absorbing.
Exactly, because I thought I did not distinguish, and this is what I want my brothers and sisters to distinguish between two things. Is he stubborn and not listening to you as a father or as a parent, and this is the nature of teenagers in general, or is he become repulsive and stubborn against his own culture, provided that he was programmed on his own culture? Normally it is the first one, not the second one. So if it is the first one, our reactions should be controlled and measured. Otherwise it will become a real problem.
We can make the teenager even hate his culture and his identity.
Exactly. For example, young girls, let us take this, okay, young girls, when they become teenagers, let us be honest, they like not to attract boys. We have to be careful, and I will emphasize more on this point in a little while. They will like to see themselves as women, not to attract boys. My dear respected brothers and sisters, if your daughter was raised up according to fitrah, to cover herself and not to mix with boys, not to expose herself in swimming pools or other sports activities in front of boys, so she was raised up on this, and the relationship between her and the rest of the family is a reasonable relationship. You might see that your daughter all of a sudden starts to develop some habits, whereby those habits can be interpreted that she is trying to attract boys or the opposite gender, such as if she was wearing hijab, she might wear colorful hijab, or she might put some little bit makeup, or she might wear some clothes that might not be appropriate to be worn outside the home. Now, when we see this, you want to leave hijab, or you don't want to act like a Muslim girl or as a practicing girl. We are, in fact, destroying her confidence in herself, and eventually she might do this. But what she is doing, she is trying to gain and improve her identity as a grown-up lady. A grown-up lady, she might put makeup, She might wear clothes to reflect that she has, for example, her shape is different now, and she looks pretty. Okay, this is
It's
in
only
general.
normal, and we have to understand this and not be too strict or too tough. I'm not saying too strict or too tough, but we have to understand and absorb it and grasp it and not take it by offense.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean that she is trying
looking
to attract
for boys.
Yes.
Okay, this is what we need to understand.
Very clear.
This is the point. Oh, if that happened, then, oh, mashallah, you are a grown-up girl. You look always pretty, especially from the father. Especially from the father. If there is no father, there should be the elder brothers or the brothers. A man in her life. I don't know whether I mentioned this in the previous episode, or I will keep repeating this. As we mentioned girls, let me just jump into the other. See, I was looking for a long period of time for what is the Islamic theory regarding the upbringing of teenager girls.
No, it's the first time we hear this.
Because I have not seen, to be honest with you, so many ahadith that talk about how to raise teenage girls, in particular girls. And I saw many books that wrote about teenagers, etc., and how to raise them and how to look after them, etc. But they do not provide a theory. What is the Islamic theory?
Allow us to hear the theory, Sheikh Haytham, after we get in Brother Abdurrahman from Nigeria.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Abdurrahman. Thank you for calling us. Go ahead. Brother, are you with us? Sorry, the line has been disconnected, Sheikh.
Okay.
Sorry,
so
Brother Abdurrahman.
I was saying that I was looking for a theory. What is the Islamic theory? Then I was reflecting upon one thing, a few things in Sharia. One is the marriage of the Prophet ﷺ to Aisha when she was young. And she was acting as a child. Sometimes she was acting as a child because she was young. She said that, طبعا no, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, we love her, and as Imam Dhahabi said that, I am making istikhara. Who is better, Aisha or Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha? And she is our mother radiallahu ta'ala anha. But so my word that she was acting as a child, it should not be taken as offense.
Out of context, of course.
It should, so, but she was young. So she was acting as a young person. So she said that she used to play with the toys. Okay, because young people, they do this. This is their nature. Now, the Prophet ﷺ fulfilled her needs as a young girl. And he said, look after young girls. Now, of course, at that time, although she was young, she reached the age of puberty. So the Prophet ﷺ took care of her emotional needs. And then I looked at Sharia, and I said that I saw that when, for example, divorce takes place between husband and wife, and the girls, when they reach the age of puberty, should join their father. And I was comparing a few other things in Sharia and what I have read and what I have seen. And I found that the key factor behind a good upbringing for a teenager female is to find a man in her life to look after her and to fulfill her emotional needs. Whether that man is a husband, is a father, is a brother, is an uncle. If she does not find a man in her circle, in her close circle, she will try to find a man outside her circle, and then the problem takes place. She will try to find boys who look after her. And we have to understand, my dear respected brothers and sisters, that how girls go astray, they look for attraction, for attention, especially from the opposite gender. And boys, if there are some dangerous boys who know how to fool sisters by by praising them, praising their beauty, praising their feminine qualities, then those teenager girls, they will be hunted and maybe enslaved by those boys. And in the beginning, they might not be attracted from a sexual perspective. No, they just want someone to look after them, to fulfill their emotional needs. So if this boy is doing this, they will go after the boy. Of course, the boy is not looking for what the girl is looking for. The girl, at that age, she's not looking for the sexual fulfillment. She's looking for the emotional side. But the boy is looking for the sexual as well as the emotional. As a result of this, the relationship between boys and girls end up with what? End up with zina, fornication, or something like this. And the girl, as I have seen in the Islamic Sharia Council so many cases, the girls, they say that we were too young and we were not aware of what we have done. The big mistake that we have done. Once we grew up, we realized that what we have done during our teenager was so grave. And you will be shocked to know that according to my own simple statistics, from what I have seen in the Islamic Sharia Council and on the fatwa line, that the most girls who fell in haram relationship and haram sexual relationship, they fell in this when they were 12 and 13
SubhanAllah, we
and
have to
maybe
be
14.
SubhanAllah, we have to be very careful there. Sheikh, what is the most appropriate way in responding to teenagers' questions about sexual issues, whether boys and girls? What's the role of the father and the mother here?
This is a very important point. I think it will take, it needs an episode itself. How to address the sexual life for your children. As I said,
teenagers, yes.
Okay, this is what my point is. First of all, if you raise up your child observing certain Islamic guidelines, which we do not call them the sexual education, but they can be classified, at least from Western perspective, as sexual education. For example, that private parts should be covered. This is sexual education. Private parts should not be touched by anyone. Private parts should be kept clean. Whenever you go to the toilet, make sure that you clean it, etc. This is called tahara. Okay? And girls, you should not look at the aura, the private part of others, as you do not allow others to look at your private parts. And in particular, if it is the opposite gender, don't look at the aura of the opposite gender.
And we should be teaching this from a very young age.
From a very young age. Okay? Now, when a child grow up, and he's around that age, 12 or 13, now we
he has
can
already
say,
been programmed for
exactly
10 or some years.
So he has been programmed and educated, or he's prepared. Then we can say inside the home, مثلا, for example, Saeed, okay, my son, مثلا, for example. My son is not Saeed, but okay, I don't want to embarrass him anyway. Let us say Saeed is my son. Oh, Saeed.
Let's hope that we are all from the Su'ada and the Dunya al-Akhirah. Ameen.
Jazakallah khair. You grew up, you are now a man. Don't you see that you become big? Don't you see that mustache is coming? Don't you see that the hair is coming under your arm? So give him some indications that there are some differences now. Also that he is a man now. And you
responsible.
Accept that he is a man now, and he has some changes. Okay? Again with the girl. the mother can tell her, be careful, you are now a grown-up girl, you have to be careful more, not anyone to touch you, not the opposite gender, and you are now a grown girl, mashallah, you become really pretty, attractive.
So here we have to move forward. We don't wait for questions or for...
So this is a preparation.
Or to monitor some unusual things to interfere. You start by taking the initiative.
Okay, you prepared, you paved the road. And then at one point, especially the girls, when they start experiencing the blood, the menstruation blood, they will say to their mom, what is this? It has been annoying us. Okay? They will go to their mom. Now, either two things.
Yes.
If their mothers have told them about it before, or the mother can tell them that now you are a mature
So which
girl.
is better before we take the break?
It depends on the case.
Okay.
It depends on each case.
Okay.
We cannot generalize.
Okay. Let's take a break here, dear brothers and sisters. Come back and continue with Sheikh Haytham. Best possible ways of raising up teenagers, especially in non-Muslim communities. But much, of course, of what's being said here applies to wherever you are. Do stay with us. We'll be back momentarily, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Never alone, you are never alone.
Ask Hoda.
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to a new edition of Ask Huda.
I have 2 questions.
Please go ahead. You can read it in Arabic and you can also understand the meaning in your own language. The different tafsir and the interpretation of the meanings of the Quran are available in almost every language that exists on earth by the grace of Allah. The water of Zamzam is for whatever intention you drink it with. Salih from Egypt, his father has the way and he asked about how can he help him. Very good question.
Can we give a zakat to any of the dawah centers?
The ibadah or the act of worship is a part of the unity of worship. It has to be paid to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in accordance with the guidance of his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to all mankind. So the ummah or the people of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are all mankind since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Sheikh Haytham, what about misconceptions about Islam, especially in the West? How do we deal with this? Do we wait until our teenagers ask us about certain stuff, or do we prevent better than cure?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. See, the biggest problem in bringing up children, especially in the West, is that what I mentioned in the beginning. We leave them until the end, and then we start addressing their concerns, or we want to change them. For example, you remember last time, and we had a bit of maybe disagreement about teaching the children.
Let's make it an argument, Sheikh. It was not a disagreement.
No problem.
It was an argument on my part.
No, disagreement. But anyway, at the end we agreed. It's all right. When we said about teaching the children that there are some fundamental differences between Muslims and non-Muslims. You have colleagues at school and they are non-Muslims. For example, I tell you about my children. They go to, some of them, they go to non-Muslim schools. They say, oh, so-and-so, he took off his clothes and he was almost naked in front of the class. Okay? That is normal in the West for maybe Western people. Or, for example, I saw the girls are changing their clothes in front of the boys. Yes, my son, we told you that we are Muslims and we have our set of values. And this is, we worship Allah. Allah is the source of everything for us. And He told us that this is not allowed and this is shame, something like this. So, but they do not have these values. And sometimes there is no harm. I know this might look strange to the viewers, but we have to say this because we have to protect our children. Sometimes you might even criticize some other values and some other practices that others do. This notion that we respect each other, this has to be qualified because you do not. I have seen this next to my house. There are schools next to my house in London, and we have seen, and my wife have seen, young boys and girls going outside either in the break or after the home time, and they are kissing each other, they are hugging each other. Young, you can say 13 and 14. So now, once the teenagers see this, or young people see this, we should say that this is haram. Shame on them that they are doing it. Okay, they are not halal to each other. This is this sister or this girl, she is, okay, why she is doing this, and so on. So we have to criticize it. We cannot say, well, this is what they believe in, we respect them. I hope that my brothers and sisters are listening to this. Why? Because when your child grew up or had the freedom to do it, you just told him yesterday that we have to respect them and this is what they believe in, then he will say, why not me? Okay, we said that we have to respect them.
Okay. What about respecting human beings in general, but depicting the act itself?
Of course, we are criticizing the act, but the act, at the end of the day, you cannot disattach the act from the human being. Okay? But of course, we are talking about the act. So something like this, or like, I'll tell you something else, because once in a lecture, people said, oh, why is this? I said, come on, in some countries, and even in the West, we saw it. Some people urinate in the street. Now, if we see a person urinating in the street, we will say, eventually all of us will say that this is disgusting. He should not have done that. Okay, now if we say this about this act, that it is disgusting, then we as Muslims should say something similar if some people are acting in a non-Islamic way.
Right.
So eventually, slowly, we are preparing our children that there are differences between our set of values and beliefs and their set of values and beliefs. So when they start asking questions that are related to some doubts, first of all, they are not asking those questions while in their mind we are equal. Okay? No, they are asking questions while they know that our set of values are different from their set of values, and we believe in Allah. Allah is the creator, and they rejected this belief. So the perception of the child, the mentality, the psychology of the child when he is asking, or the teenager even, when he's asking this question, is different from the perception of the teenager who was not raised according to what we said.
Evidently, very important point there again, Sheikh. So, do we wait until they ask questions? Or
Yeah.
I'm talking about the misconceptions about the religion itself here.
So if we teach our children...
In the West, there is a lot of bad
Yes.
propaganda against
Islam.
Yeah.
So if we raise our children in this formula that we mentioned, as well as we taught them to be confident and proud, maybe, of their religion, of their identity, and we connect them to our legacy, then even when they ask questions, they will not have inferiority.
Subhanallah,
And
Muslims should always feel proud.
Yes, because if they ask while they feel inferior, you have to deal with the psychology first before addressing the technicality of the question they ask. For example, if they ask that, oh, is it true that our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married to a young girl? Okay? Now, there is a difference between a person who is asking this question to know, or a person who absorbed this, accepted this, and he feels inferior in front of others. Okay? How the difference can be seen or established based on the upbringing. Okay? Now, okay, look at the other example. Normally in the West, young people, young children, they say, they called me terrorist. Okay? What is this? And they said that we Muslims are killing people and do this and that. Okay? Now there is a difference between a child who feels inferior asking this question, or a child who can say, like some children did, you call me terrorist. What about you? Britain, America and other countries went to Iraq and killed more than 1 million people. So now he has some confidence and some information to respond. And see, let us not pave a gloomy picture about life in the West. Life in the West is challenging. And sometimes the children have to take, and even ourselves have to take certain measures in bringing up our children in order to face those challenges, such as informing them about some of those facts.
So the point, the huge propaganda about the terrorism and so on. There is, of course, a clear line and a big difference between states who sponsor terrorism in the form of occupation or in the form of killing, like the Israelis, for instance, and between some individuals here and there that could be practicing terrorism. So in fact, if anybody would be labeled a terrorist, it should be the state that is sponsoring terrorism, like Israel, for instance, or the state that is going to war and killing millions, and not an individual here or there who is doing acts of terrorism.
Absolutely. And as one child one time said, that when they said, no, this is not terrorism, this is, a child, he said, well, terrorism is a terrorism, the other incident. The child responded to him by saying that, but you voted for this government, this state, that went to Iraq and killed people. Okay? So we have to teach our children how to respond. But we cannot teach them how to respond out of nothing. We have to make them confident of their identities, of themselves first of all, and of what Allah sent to them, of the Quran and Sunnah, and then we can respond to their questions and we can address some
SubhanAllah,
concerns.
Sheikh, you know, every time since the beginning of the episode you've been stressing on this, is that if you want to solve teenage problems, then you do it from the very early ages, from the boyhood, from the time they are children, from the very young ages. That's the key.
That is the key. And that's why, you remember last episode we said, please, my dear respected brothers and sisters, teach them about Islam. Teach them about Quran. Let them learn Quran. Let them spend some time with Muslims. You might not see the impact, the direct impact of these things, but eventually it will have a big difference when they become
So in the
teenagers.
couple of minutes we have left, Sheikh, what about those who haven't, and surely some of them are watching us now, some brothers and sisters, what about those who haven't done this but want to,
excellent point. Jazakallah khair.
To save the situation.
I strongly advise to find for your teenagers another community of teenagers or young people whom your teenagers will mix with. Wallahi, nothing will influence the teenagers like their counterparts, the teenagers. That's why connect them with the masjid. If there is like a group in the masjid of teenagers, the sisters, maybe if you have some relatives, or maybe you know some other women who are young or who have been in the West from younghood, because they can address their problems more than you. And this means, my dear respected brothers and sisters, maybe I will not be, or I am as a father, might not be the best person to address some of the problems of my children. Let the parents not be arrogant and let them accept this. So maybe you will be more qualified to address my children than myself. Sometimes the children accept from others, especially if they are young, more than they accept from their parents. That is fine. Absolutely. And that's why in non-Muslim countries, we have to look after other children, so the other children will look after our children, and so on.
Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh, on that important note and advice. We thank on behalf of you, dear brothers and sisters, renowned Muslim scholar Sheikh Haytham Al-Haddad, the director of the Muslim Research and Development Foundation, Islam 21C, that's Islam 21C, the letter, .com, the website, member of the Islamic Sharia Council. Barakallahu feekum, Sheikh Haytham, Jazakallahu khairan.
Barakallahu feekum.
Wafikum, Sheikh Haytham. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters, for watching us. Next week, same time, is our upcoming date, inshallah. Until we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Never alone, you are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace, you are never alone. So now, as you long for your past, prepare for your future, but knowing nothing's gonna last. You see, this life is but a road, a straight and narrow path to our final abode. So travel well, O Muslim, and paradise will be your home. And always remember that you are never